pilot episode of Win or Learn. My name is Paul of PGGS Music, and thank you for having a listen today, assuming that this pilot went well and I've actually put it out. So, what's this all about then, I hear you say? I've always liked music podcasts, and I've always liked the idea of doing a music podcast. Just never really committed the time to doing it or finding an avenue that I wanted to explore with it, because there's lots of different styles of ones out there. I didn't just want to do kind of a general wishy-washy style, here are some music conversation that you might be interested in. So I had a little burst of inspiration the other day, and it was drawn from a lyric of mine that I use in a song called Win or Learn, funnily enough. And the premise behind that is that everything we do, be it as a musician or just in life in general, either we are successful and the thing we want happens, or we are to some extent not successful, be it completely or only partially. So that's where the lessons parts come in. So first crack at this, thought I'd give it a try, be the guinea pig myself before. Ultimately, if it goes well, the plan is to interview musicians from around the Sheffield scene and then beyond, maybe, if things go well. And yeah, just share some thoughts, share some experiences. Maybe there'll be some things you can relate to. And so far, I'm already remembering my key piece of advice to myself, which is remember to breathe, and not everybody speaks as quickly as I do. So, but if you know me in real life, you know I'm already trying quite hard. So that's the premise. Win or learn. Talking about victories and lessons as a musician. They could be big things or little things. They could be recent things or historical things. They could also be serious things or just quite light-hearted things. For this maiden voyage, I've endeavoured to pick a couple of each. A couple that are smaller things and a couple that are bigger things. So, got my notes in front of me, so we'll give this a go and see how we get on. So, in the spirit of the title, I'm going to start with a win. And this is a small win. And this is the intro part to Bomb Track by Rage Against the Machine. Now, if you are a guitar player, and if you've played this song, you probably know what I'm about to start talking about. So, for me, Bomb Track was one of the earliest memories when I was learning to play guitar, about finding a song that I wanted to play, finding a bit I couldn't currently play, and then being able to overcome that and being able to kind of master the section that was causing difficulty. With Bomb Track, there is a little hammer-on pull-off section in the towards the end of the full cycle. So you got that that little dillit is the bit that I was always getting stuck with, but I kept working away at it. Eventually, I got to the point where I could do it. Unfortunately, because I was so used to not being able to do it, the first however many times I was able to do it, I would play it. I get the dillit. And then I'd go, yeah, I did the diddler. But then I realised I'd stop playing because I assumed that I wasn't going to play the rest of it right, or I wasn't going to get the diddler right. So that took a little while to get used to as well. In terms of going, oh yes, I can play it, but there is also more song that follows it. Quite a bit more song, given it's the intro. I know historically a similar thing is people talk about Back in Black and the run in the main riff of that, the that little run there is often seen as a kind of an early stepping stone to becoming a rock guitarist. Once you could play that, it's like, okay, maybe I can have a go at this guitar playing thing. And that was one for me as well, but that came later on. The first one that really sticks with me, or the one at least that is the most poignant in my memory, is definitely Bomb Track. And what's quite nice about that one now is that I now teach that in the lessons that I do, both on bass and guitar. As I've said on many a thing, in many a format, that first Rage Against the Machine album is a perfect starting point for anyone wanting to learn rock bass, rock guitar, or rock drums, to be honest. It's just like riff after riff after riff, awesome beats, and so much of the bass copying what the not copying, that's not the fair thing to say, mirroring what the guitar is doing, but then adding its own embellishments when needed as well. So yeah, so that's my first little win, being able to do the diddler in the bomb track intro, and that was a good stepping stone to go on to do later things further down the line, like getting into getting into playing Metallica and playing Slayer and playing Megadeth, because I was very much established my guitar playing on a healthy diet of thrash. So that's my first little win. So my first learn. I decided that I would do the big learn in the middle so that I can end with a slightly lighter, more whimsical learn. But I think I'd do a kind of a bigger one as my first learn. So this is regarding the first show I did as Lamenya, which was at the Metal to Masses here in Sheffield in 2018. Yes, something like that. So, to give a little bit of backstory to this. So, historically, I imagine like a lot of people who like to create, like to play music or any other form of art, I've had about a million projects that have taken off in my head but never become actual things, or I've written a song in a particular style and go, well, I've clearly have started a new band, so I need to think of all the other things apart from writing more songs, like getting a MySpace or a Facebook or a YouTube or whatever era of me we're talking about. And design a logo and think of a name, but never actually like writing more songs and it becoming a band. And I got to the point where I was getting very frustrated with myself about this. So the ambition with Lamenya was to do everything myself, quite literally. So obviously I wrote all the songs, but then live I would play guitar, I would emulate a bass sound via the guitar, and I would sing. And then I would have the drums that initially ones that I had programmed. I used programmed in the crudest sense. Got from Guitar Pro, so they sounded okay, but yeah, not overly like a full drum kit live. And then doing all the designing the logo, all that stuff. And I thought I needed a deadline in order to actually make this happen, otherwise it will be another one for the long list of projects that never went anywhere. And the Metal to the Masses tournament was about 6 months away at this point, so I figured that'd be a good opportunity. It gives me time to put together a 30-minute set and maybe even practice, but we'll get to that in a second. But yes, I got my songs written, had my set, had the shows lined up, and it was all looking good. Had the name, but I've neglected a couple of things, both in the preparation stage. So I mentioned briefly about emulating the bass sound. The way I initially did this was just to split the signal via my tuner pedal, so taking the bypass and putting that through an octave on a multi-effects unit I had, which when I was playing at home, just trying it out, sounded pretty cool. But as soon as I started doing the gig and put that on, it was clear that it had nowhere near the punch of actual bass, and just made the guitar sound a bit fatter, but didn't really feel like a full band. So that was the first half of the lesson of I really should have had a few test runs of putting the whole thing together, particularly as it was by myself, and particularly because there was a lot of moving parts to it. But yeah, so that was the first half of that particular lesson. The other half of it, obviously with being a brand new project, all the songs were, funnily enough, brand new. I had been a little bit cunning in so much as, and I won't bore you with the kind of creative, artistic reasons why I wanted to do this, but the set was half songs, half instrumentals. Idea being that each song had an accompanying intro or outro piece, was the short version of the idea. But again, with them being brand new and with my already apparent lack of planning, practicing, I didn't do the key thing of singing the songs while playing them beforehand. I'd sung them in my head and I'd worked out the melodies, and I got the lyrics to scan and to fit within the rhythm. So I'd sung along to like the MIDI versions of the songs, but I hadn't put all the pieces together, which feels like a really obvious oversight and something that, I probably could have put two and two together and done that in advance. But, I was running around doing other things. I was probably trying to do 3 or 4 other things, maybe 1 or 2 other jobs at the same time. So inevitably things are going to just make it to the finish line in time. The the result of all of this was that, in short, I sucked. Really sucked. People were very supportive and people were very kind about it. Fortunately, I was playing on a heat that had a couple of mates' bands on, so I had a very warm audience to this first offering. But yeah, the bass was pretty much non-existent as soon as the programmed drums kicked in. And yeah, with the vocal side of things, I hadn't pitched whether I was going to be in like a lower register or a higher register for certain bits. I thought it would sound cooler in the kind of lower part of my voice, but then I found that didn't really carry against everything else. Ironically, that was like the only bass that was really in there other than the digital kick drum. So a lot of lessons to learn whilst you're also trying to remember new songs, whilst you're also trying to remember that you are playing a gig to an audience. So all in all, it could have been, that could have been the one and done. Fortunately, the silver lining, I did persevere with it and it did grow and become something, I think at least pretty awesome, and I got to do lots of awesome things with it. But in that moment, packing down my stuff, I thought, well, that was a complete waste of 6 months. Completely made a try not to swear because I don't know who's going to hear this, so made a complete hash of that. What was the point of all that? Why did I do that? But, I persevered. Fun side note, I have actually, as with many of the shows I did with Lamenya, I recorded it on my dictaphone, and I have on a few occasions braved listening to it, and it's still dreadful. But thankfully, the recordings from later shows sound much better. So, yeah, there's a little silver lining as we go into our second win. On a similar theme, in fact. So, still sticking with Lamenya as my last big musical project, which I wrapped up at the end of last year. Or have I? Spoiler. Not a gig. There's one thing left to do, but I'll leave that there for now. So, with the Metal to Masses tournament, I have entered it a number of times in various numbers of bands, but not had a great deal of success with it. But, with the benefit of Jake and Gaz, aka Heel Turn, running the Metal to Masses, and with the bigger corporation where Jake is now the booker, which is awesome, I've often been called upon to fill in last minute gaps or short notice gaps. Also for the places like West Street Live when Craig was engineering there. So I've done many a gig on days, if not hours notice. This particular one was a band had dropped out last minute from one of the Metal to Masses heats. Now, I hadn't even entered this time because I thought, well, I've not had a lot of success with it previously. I'll focus on doing other bits and pieces and working towards doing some fewer but more interesting gigs or bigger gigs or things with a bit of occasion rather than just another crack at the tournament. But I thought about it for 10 minutes and I was like, yeah, you know what? We'll give it a go. I hadn't done the solo version of things for a little while. I'd been doing, more select gigs, but with a full backing band, which was awesome. However, a few hours is not really a lot of time to prep the full backing band and have them be in one place. So I went down. I've cobbled together the old one-man version of the setup, and it went okay. It wasn't brilliant, I won't lie, but I did a reasonable job. Didn't get through on the heat. And I was like, okay, well, I gave that a go. Maybe that's when I first... There's no TH there, Paul. That's when I first started the thinking, there's the TH, about wrapping things up with Lamenya, in so much as I wasn't... I still enjoyed what I had put together and what I had done so far, but I didn't have a lot of new creativity or new ideas for it. So I took that as a sign that things were starting to naturally come to an end, which is fine. These things happen, and but anyway, that's not the point of this particular ramble. I later got a call from Gaz letting me know that I had in fact got through as the wild card, which meaning that from all the heats, all the judges and crowd scores are put together, and that's how they work out who goes through in each heat. But the wild card is essentially the best runner-up. So after all the bands who actually qualified in the heats, mine was the best score for the next in line, essentially. So I got through to the semi-final anyway, which was a very pleasant surprise. As I say, I was starting to think, well, maybe I should start wrapping up this, but no, apparently there was still a little bit more life in it. And what was great about that, so like I say, I've done many occasions where I've picked up gigs last minute, and sometimes they're pretty good, like the Hilltone ones, generally the turnouts are pretty good. Oftentimes they were West Street Live on a Monday, and any Sheffield musicians will know that's not exactly a packed house. But I took it all as practice and all experience, and I wanted to build a reputation of someone who could be called upon in a pinch to provide some delicate doom. You're welcome, Gaz. I thought I'd drop it in there. But on this occasion, it worked out wonderfully because I got the wildcard spot from the heat. I then went on to play the semi-final and had enough time to get the backing band that I'd put together for some shows the prior year together, and then we won our semi-final. So the upshot of that is I got to play the main stage at Corp for the final. Now, didn't win the final, obviously, but I was never really expecting that I would. The stuff with Lamenia, the music, is quite I wouldn't say niche, but it's for a particular listener. It's it's long-ish form. It's relatively grim and bleak, whilst being melodic, but also being heavy. So it's certainly not for everybody, and I totally get that. But getting to play the main stage at Corporation has always been a thing on my figurative musical bucket list. Like I say, I've made multiple attempts at the Metal Masters thing before, and I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective. But to get to play the main stage of Corp was a huge deal. As someone who went to uni in Sheffield and then stayed here for the duration, naturally, Corp became a homing beacon for a long-haired metalhead like myself. And aside from all the nights of going to the club nights and drinking way too many Nuki Browns and or Jack and Cokes, I would also see excellent gigs there, and they used to get some really big names in our kind of world. So saw Lamb of God there a couple of times, Gajira, Mastodon when they were touring the whole of Crack the Sky, Volbeat, Blackstone Cherry, all these really established bands who I was at that particular point in time really huge fans of. I mean, to be honest, I still enjoy all those bands, just I'm a little bit more picky because I'm getting older. But yeah, to use the theatre parlance, to get to tread the same boards as those artists was a huge deal for me. And yeah, it was a fantastic occasion. And as I say, I had no delusions I was going to win it, but that wasn't what I was there for. I got to play the main stage of Corp, got some epic photos, even brought out the very special guitar, being the Les Paul Custom that my dad handed over to me on my wedding day, which was had been his for many years, and he wanted to pass it on a grand occasion like that. Which was, that was the point that many people got their first tears of the wedding, interestingly. So make of that what you will. So there we go. So that was my small win, my big learn, my big win, and so we'll wrap things up to keeping with the title, with a small learn. So slightly more light-hearted lesson to wrap things up. If you've made it this far, thank you very much. It feels like it's going okay, but we'll see when I play it back a bit later today. Hopefully I've managed to keep the velocity of my words reasonably in check, so we'll see. So the last lesson ties into the Lamenia world one last time, and this is around tramlines. Now, for those of you not familiar with the concept of tramlines, it is a weekend of music events across Sheffield, in virtually any space where a band or musician can fit. Originally it was all free, and there was a big stage with some more established acts, but then all the other venues were included within the official tramlines. But then over time, these things need money to work, which is fair. So there became a paid tramlines, and then the wider bit became known as the Fringe. So not officially tramlines, but kind of tramlines adjacent, I guess. Anywho, being, writing the kind of music I write and playing the music I play, not really the kind of thing that's going to go on like a paid bit of tramlines, but I'm well acquainted with the fringe elements of it. But one particular year, so this would be 2019, I had the very bright idea of trying to play as many shows as possible. I think I'd taken too much of a page out of Regulus and Fire Garden's book, where they would play like multiple gigs in a day over multiple days. So the way that worked out for me was that on the Friday night I played at the Dove and Rainbow with Fire Garden, in fact. There you go. Then on the Saturday I played at the County Music Bar in Chesterfield at midday. Then went to the Mason's Arms outside Hillsborough to play there around 2 o'clock. And then I went to the Royal Standard, now no longer in operation, sadly. But yeah, went to the Royal Standard to play at 5 o'clock. Bearing in mind that I started playing on the Friday night at 7-ish, that is, as you've probably already worked out, 4 gigs in 24 hours. And the lesson of that is, that's a really silly idea. Now again, like the earlier point, that might be blindingly obvious, but when I'm in band mode, I perhaps am a bit blinkered with my sense of what is finding that balance between, yes, that is achievable, but is it a sensible idea? Oftentimes my ideas aren't very sensible, but it still makes for a cool story. And the lesson of that one is very simple. I don't think I would do that again. That was it was great, and it made for some great hashtag content, and it was a fun experience. Also, only 1 or 2 times I got to play the County Music Bar with Lamenia, the other one being another unsuccessful attempt at Metal to the Masses. See, I'm linking everything together. It's almost like I've done a little bit of planning. But yeah, it wasn't a very sensible idea. I played that 4th show, the one at the Royal Standard, and then I pretty much went home to bed because I was pretty much toast. But that kind of thing, and I can wrap this up in a nice positive way, that is another stellar example of what having a wonderful other half is. Because my wife Kathy is a Goram superhero, to be fair. She was there at the show on the Friday night. She then very kindly offered to drive me to the Chesterfield for the first show, then to Hillsborough for the second show, and then to the Royal Standard for the third show. So not only did she see all 4 performances of essentially the same set, she also drove me around the county, because Chesterfield's not in Sheffield, funnily enough. And then she very kindly said, "Right, finish your 4th show. Can I go see some tramlines now?" And I'm like, "Absolutely. I will add this to the tally of things that I owe you for at this stage." So yes, hopefully you will listen to this, even if it's me playing it to you, sweetheart. So thank you very much for that again. You are a big damn hero. And that's it. That is my 2 wins and my 2 learns. I think that went pretty well. It feels like it went pretty well. Like I say, when I listen back, if it sounds disastrous, then you'll never hear this, and only it'll just be me talking to myself in my office, just like most days. But assuming that it does come out all right, I've already got some tentative guests lined up to kind of get this in motion. Similar format, couple of wins, couple of learns, but I figured it'd be nice to get other people's perspective and then see if there are parallels with my own experience or things that I've not got any experience of. So it would be good to broaden my horizons in that way. That you got so close to the end before butchering a word. In that way. There we go. So, if you've made it this far and I've actually released it, I thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a fun insight into what my experience of being a aspiring musician have been like in Sheffield. And yeah, I hope that this comes up well and that we could do some more. So, this has been Win or Learn. Thank you very much for listening. Again, my name is Paul of PGGS Music, and hope you have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.